welcome to the next instalment of our science seminar series. I hope everyone can hear me. It even seems loud from up here. So, my name's Brodie Young. I'm the section manager for the Environmental Quality and Hazard section, part of the science group. So yeah, look, thank you very much for coming out this afternoon. It's a good turnout, and it's yeah, really pleasing to see that. I'm going to just start really quickly with a health and safety briefing. So just the key thing to remember, the people here have identified the big glass windows as a bit of a hazard. So in the event of an earthquake or such, try not to look out the window too much, but we're sort of covered here anyway, I see. So yeah, usual story, just remain seated until things settle down, face away from the windows, and yeah, I guess get under the chair if you can. Now the key thing to, so obviously men and women's toilets just there, bar's not open, I don't think, and 2 exits. So this one at the front here goes to an outside set of stairs, and at the door that you came in, if you go to the other side of that lift foyer area, there's some stairs which take you down to the ground level, and the sort of meeting area is out of the car park. So I guess, yeah, those in the front go out that door, those in the back, that one, and one's in the middle. Yeah, charge of your own destiny, I guess. So let's move on now. This seminar is different to ones we've delivered to date. You won't see any graphs or tables or regression analysis or ANOVA tables or anything. So for those of you who really like those things, sorry, you'll be disappointed. But what you will find out about is some work that we're embarking on. That's exciting. It's in a way it's innovative. It's certainly innovative for us. You could argue that we're playing a bit of catch up, but we're doing something which I think is a little different. I won't tell you what it is. Catherine is going to do that. But it's certainly a different approach, and it's something new for the science group and new for ECAN as a whole. So I'd like to introduce Catherine Hill. Catherine hails from Fairlie. She started with ECAN as a student, as an ecology student, in 2012, and she spent a lot of time, a whole summer, wandering around the Mackenzie Basin looking for wild conifers. There's quite a lot of them in the Mackenzie Basin, so that kept her occupied for a while. And she's been with us on and off ever since. Catherine has a BSc in biology and a BA in political science and Māori and Indigenous studies, which you might think is a bit odd. I did when I first heard it, but when you consider the topic today, I don't think you'll find a better combination. So yeah, it's great to see someone like Catherine embarking on these sorts of studies. She's now working on her honours, as well as working full-time and working part-time. So she's pretty busy. She's working in RMG at the moment, as many of you will know, but we're bidding her farewell in a couple of weeks. She's got a consents planner job down at Mackenzie District. So congratulations, Catherine, and we hope to continue working with you in a slightly different capacity. So yeah, questions at the end. I hope you've got some. We will have time for a discussion if I shut up, which I will. And yeah, so Catherine, all yours.
Kia ora koutou, thank you. And thank you, Brodie, for your introduction. My one requirement of Brodie was that he didn't embarrass me, so thank you. And you might think my degree study was weird, but when I first met David Perenara O'Connell, he said that's perfect. And I thought, yes, finally found the right place. So hopefully it qualifies me to talk about this topic. So tell me if I talk too fast. I know I have a habit of talking very quickly, but I've also been told that I've got a lot of content to get through, so I've got to try and rush through some of that. So hopefully I'll find the right balance. So just to give you a bit of background and context to what I'm talking to you about today and the work that I've done. Obviously our founding document, the Treaty of Waitangi, obliges councils to involve the Māori in a lot of the decision making to anything that affects them. So in giving effect to the treaty, councils must recognise and provide for kaitiakitanga, or guardianship, and rangatiratanga, self-determination. So we apply the treaty through treaty principles, which have evolved over time. And the three principles that apply most to the work we do are active protection, so to actively protect that which is important to Māori. The principle of tribal autonomy, which guarantees Māori the right to manage, control and enjoy their own resources and taonga in accordance with their cultural preferences. And the duty to consult, so ensuring Māori are consulted with on matters of importance to them. The Resource Management Act and the Local Government Act direct local authorities to implement these principles. So the important sections of the RMA, Section 6, recognises the importance of the relationship of Māori and their culture to their ancestral lands, water, wahitapu and other taonga. Section 7 requires a regard to kaitiakitanga in relation to managing the use and development of resources, natural and physical. And Section 8 requires that the principles of the treaty be taken into account when we're managing resources. And then further to legislative requirements, Environment Canterbury recognised the value of developing a genuine relationship with the local iwi, with Ngāi Tahu. And so this was progressed through signing the relationship agreement between Ngā Papatepe Runanga and Environment Canterbury in 2012. And since then, both parties have been working to foster a genuine relationship based on mutual trust and goodwill. So the science strategy document, hopefully a number of you are familiar with, was commissioned by Environment Canterbury, and it identified Mātauranga Māori as one of 13 mechanisms that we should be focusing on. And in addition to being identified as a distinct mechanism, it's interwoven throughout the other mechanisms and recommendations. And that's what sort of brought me to the work that I was doing for ECAN over the last summer, looking at Mātauranga, how can we engage, what do we need to be doing, and making some recommendations if we're to work in that space, how could we go about that. And so that brought me to drafting this document. So when I began this work, the question I was constantly asked is, what is Mātauranga Māori? And I would give the same answer that I'll give you. I can't really answer that. It's not for me to define, and to define it really limits it and cuts it off from what it is and its true meaning. But if I was to talk a bit about it, I would say that it is a complex system of knowledge derived from a specific cultural context, and it's developed over time. It's holistic in nature, it's dynamic, it's a responsive body of knowledge. It's a practical knowledge system, and it serves the needs of the people, the wider community, and it's constantly growing and changing. So within the context of Environment Canterbury's work, Mātauranga Māori provides a valuable kete, a large array of skills, and that's based on a long view of centuries of adaptation and pragmatic practice. So I did a lot of reading, trying to get my head around how can I define it, or what is it, and I looked at New Zealand writings and international writings, and I came across this quote by Burks, which is that Indigenous knowledge is a knowledge, value, belief system complex. So that sort of sums up, it's a lot bigger than we would translate it to be if we just use the translation of knowledge. It's so much more than that. So the concepts contained within Mātauranga reflect the totality of the worldview and are based upon close observation with the environment. It cannot be delivered in isolated units, nor can it be divorced from the cultural context from which it's arisen. So therefore, the scope of Mātauranga Māori in science is not about taking aspects of Māori knowledge and using them to fit within existing scientific frames. It's rather about engaging with the kaitiaki of that Mātauranga. So the working with local runanga and iwi. So I describe it as the meeting of two worlds. And so one of the key points is it's not about using Mātauranga, thank you guys, or science, what we'd call Western science. You don't use one to prove the other. Really, they come together and inform society's knowledge as a whole. So they're parts of a picture, or it's another tool in the toolbox. And you have other things, citizen science, and so forth, that contribute to that knowledge. And then this is the space that I'm most interested in. So it's called the interface. And that's that space where you've got the overlap. And really that's where we should be working. So it provides an opportunity for the two perspectives to contribute to enhancing societal knowledge system without distorting the principles or values upon which each rest. It seeks to utilise both sets of values and methods, and is differentiated from either being Mātauranga Māori research or scientific research. So when I'm talking about working at the interface, I'm not expecting that individuals within ECAN, within our science team, go out and do Mātauranga. That was one of the questions I was asked quite a bit when I started. How do I, as a scientist, do Mātauranga? And I said, well, here's your problem. It's not for you to do. It's not for me to do. Mātauranga is a knowledge that's been developed by generations. And so this work, this interface space, is about you going out and engaging with Rūnanga to work out how can we work together. So when I started thinking about what can we do as an organisation, I came up with 4 key domains, interrelated domains, interconnected domains. So I'll look at each of these in turn. I won't explicitly explore relationship building, and in my report I sort of kept that separately because for me it's inherent within any of these other areas. So without a relationship, you can't work in any of these spaces, and a result of working in these areas is to strengthen that relationship. So the first area is capacity building. So cross-cultural engagement, the key thing is to sit down and have a kōrero, to have a talk, listen to each other's perspectives, aspirations, and work out where do we actually want to go. So to enable this, our staff need to be given the skills that they need to be able to go out and engage with Rūnanga. And the Rūnanga need to have that capacity to engage with us. So there's 2 parts to this. There's building internal capacity within the ECAN, and then there's aiding the Rūnanga capacity building. So if we break that down, internal staff need to be supported to develop an understanding of the value of Mātauranga to complement existing protocols and practices that we already have in the organisation, developing an enhanced appreciation of cultural views and practices. So some possibilities for this space: prioritising areas of collaboration or engagement, staff training to ensure that our staff are equipped with the skills to communicate and collaborate with tangata whenua in an enriching and culturally competent manner, and joint appointments with Ngā Papatipa Rūnanga, Te Rūnanga o Ngāi Tahu and other Māori organisations. And then the other side of that, and this needs to happen simultaneously, is aiding the Rūnanga capacity building. So to ensure resourced and coordinated participation, Rūnanga capacity building needs to run simultaneously, and this dual approach will empower Papatipa Rūnanga to undertake joint research of mutual value to Environment Canterbury and tangata whenua. And our role in this is we should be supporting the Rūnanga capacity building, but it's their building for them to do, and so we can support them, but that can be done through areas such as service level agreements or casual employment opportunities, so real world recognition of services rendered, exploration of training opportunities and how we can help with that, and student engagement, so scholarships and student positions, using what we've already got, but there's a possibility of focusing that in the areas of Mātauranga and interface. So the second area, information sharing. So 2-way information sharing is vital for collaboration and effective management. So access to information held by Environment Canterbury is important for Ngāi Tahu and Papatipa Rūnanga in order to manage their rohi. So there's two areas I looked at. Building a data hub, so allowing for that storage of information. So information that's provided to Environment Canterbury should be stored, and at a later date we should be able to, if the Rūnanga come back to us, we should be able to provide that information, be kaitiaki of that. And also state of the takiwa monitoring and reporting could be involved or included in state of the environment reporting. So there's a lot of knowledge that can be added to our existing structures. A fourth area is in collaborative delivery. So any genuine expression for a partnership involves collaboration of both parties. So we need to be able to recognise respective skills and perspectives as vital components of collaborative delivery. In this way, each partner will learn to experience their wealth of experience that the partners bring in. And so we need to foster open dialogue between Papatipu Rūnanga and Environment Canterbury science staff, allowing for meaningful involvement from priority setting through the development and execution of investigations, right the way through to communication of outcomes, so realisation of a complete feedback loop. And staff can begin to consider how Mātauranga could add benefit to the work that they are currently undertaking, and how engaging with Rūnanga could add additional perspectives and insights to their own work. So one area would be transdisciplinary project teams, which would allow for the inclusion of tangata whenua perspectives for the realisation of the partnership. These teams can carry out cultural assessments as a component of associated monitoring and would provide the opportunity to develop practical skills in a collaborative activity in both organisations. And engagement. So the key to all of this work is really learning how to engage and developing that open dialogue and the trust and respect. And that's something that runs through all of the recommendations. But there are also particular things we can do outside of the realm of our scientific programs to foster engagement. And so a key area could be engaging with youth and the Rūnanga members, getting the youth engaged and interested and helping them develop as interface agents. So as part of my research project, I looked at what some current practices were. So I considered 4. 2 internal examples that we are currently doing in Environment Canterbury, and 2 bigger case studies looking at how 2 CRIs, Landcare Research and NIWA, how they have structured themselves around this work. So my first example is one that you'll probably all be aware of, Whakaora Te Waihora. So it's a joint program focusing on the cultural and ecological restoration of Te Waihora Lake Ellesmere. It's led by Ngāi Tahu and Environment Canterbury. So Te Waihora is a lake of dual importance to ECAN and Ngāi Tahu, both as an internationally significant wetland and as a tribal taonga, signifying an important source of mahinga kai and mana. So in 2011, a relationship agreement and shared commitment was signed between Environment Canterbury and the Te Waihora Management Board, and then in 2012, the Te Waihora Co-Governance Agreement was subsequently signed. So this agreement signalled the long-term commitment made by the respective parties to the restoration and rejuvenation of the lake. The monitoring undertaken was mostly a continuation of pre-existing practices, and scientific investigations were conducted by external providers under the guidance of ECAN and Ngāi Tahu, and they focused on 6 key areas. So lake openings and channels, lake levels and benefits of controlling the levels, mahinga kai biohealth and the risk assessment of pesticide buildup, the trial re-establishment of macrophytes, fish stocks and nutrient processing, and specifically the exploration of denitrification hotspots. So although some setbacks were encountered due to just the nature of establishing a practical partnership, the Whakaora Te Waihora Joint Work Programme has been a successful example of co-governance. It exhibits the success of a full inclusion relationship through joint priority setting via hui. Tangata whenua perspectives and cultural monitoring were incorporated into science group processes, with Whakaora Te Waihora focusing on delivering science of interest and value to both Ngāi Tahu and Papatipu Rūnanga, as well as Environment Canterbury. And our Chair of Commissioners, Dame Margaret, sums it up quite nicely by saying, it's all about working together to achieve the rehabilitation and restoration of Te Waihora Lake Ellesmere, which is a regional treasure. So it's not about all the structures we put in place or exactly how we manage the science. It's just about working together. It's about building those relationships and getting out and working alongside each other. So my second case study, internal case study, shows an example of how one individual can engage with Mātauranga without having to go hugely outside of the scope of their own work. And so this was done by Marion Gadsby, who's a geological hazards analyst within the science group. So she was looking at paleo-tsunamis. So paleo-tsunamis are tsunamis occurring prior to historical record, or for which there are no written observations. And so Marion does existing work looking at onshore and offshore analysis and modelling. And part of that includes taking historical accounts of past events. And so Marion was undergoing this work, and as part of her performance review, she was having to tick off, are you involved with TUI, or what is your TUI involvement? And rather than just ticking the box that she's been to the training and things, she thought, how can I actually meaningfully engage? And she started off by going to a noho marae, which is an experience that I can absolutely recommend. If you get the chance, absolutely go on that. So she went to noho marae and she began to learn about Māori culture and Māori language. And she also came to realise the importance that when she's going out and collecting soil samples, it's important to go and talk to the local rūnanga to work out where is it culturally appropriate to sample or where is it not. And so she saw a presentation by James Goff from the University of New South Wales around his work that he was doing on paleo-tsunamis and including pūrākau around the Canterbury coastline, or New Zealand coastline. And Marion became quite interested in how she could involve that in the work that she did. And so she began to incorporate such an approach into her existing toolkit. And I love the way when you talk to Marion, she describes it as just another tool in the toolbox. So she wasn't using it to prove the science or using the science to prove the pūrākau, but it was just another tool, another part of the picture. So now she engages with local iwi, hapu and rūnanga to see whether they know of taniwha pūrākau for the Canterbury coastline. And when pūrākau are identified, and if they include named individuals connected to a genealogy, then you can develop a timeline for that as well. So Marion identifies the importance of talking and listening to tangata whenua as guardians of pūrākau and identifying the right kaumātua with him to have the conversations. She describes the inclusion of pūrākau as just another strand of evidence to add to all the others. And evidence aside, engaging with Mātauranga Māori is mostly about relationships. So Marion states that she had gained an insight into the value of seeing matters from different perspectives. Although aware of the constraints of practicalities such as time and budget, she recognises that doing things properly and respectfully will lead to better results. And Marion gave me this lovely quote here, summing up her experience. For me, this Mātauranga Māori approach is about having an open mind to learn about things I really don't know nothing about, to see things in a different way and to engage with people who see things differently. So, again, it's the message that you aren't having to go out and do Mātauranga, it's about engaging with the local rūnanga who have that knowledge. And so then I considered two CRIs. So I wasn't looking at individual work programs within CRIs, but I was looking at the structure they have altogether. And so Landcare Research, or Manaaki Whenua, is a Crown research charged with the management of land resources and terrestrial biodiversity. Manaaki Whenua means to cherish, conserve and sustain the land and all it supports. And so the staff at Manaaki Whenua provide extensive range of support and resources to benefit Māori communities. And they seek to enable the innovative potential of Māori knowledge, resources and people for the benefit of all New Zealanders. And I've made a commitment to conducting research in partnership with Māori organisations and communities. And it is an important foundation of their scientific investigations. They recognise iwi and hapu as participants and stakeholders, encouraging all staff members within the organisation to engage with tangata whenua and Mātauranga Māori. Inherent within their work is a commitment to exploring the interface between Mātauranga Māori and science. Manaaki Whenua recognise the mutual benefit of Māori knowledge, values, perspectives and practices and what they offer to their understanding of biodiversity, land resources and ecosystems, and ultimately the ability to manage natural resources in Aotearoa. So Manaaki Whenua define Māori as Māori knowledge and values, so taking a wider view than just translating it to be knowledge. Internally, Manaaki Whenua have committed to fostering bicultural within their staff. So they offer te reo, tikanga and waiata sessions, as well as Treaty of Waitangi appreciation courses. And this occurs alongside initiatives to develop Māori research capability within the organisation through recruiting Māori scientists, and the inclusion of interested staff in Māori research programs, partnering with Māori organisations and working collaboratively with iwi and hapu researchers. Manaaki Whenua also provide advice and have developed tools suitable for organisations when engaging with tangata whenua. And this includes working with councils to aid engagement with Mātauranga through the building of relationships with tangata whenua. The other CRI I looked at was NIWA, and so I looked at Te Kawaha, which is the Māori Environmental Research and Development Group housed within NIWA. The group supports iwi and hapu management of their natural resources by sharing knowledge with Māori communities and empowering Māori businesses with the latest science. It conducts research to support Māori communities, augmenting traditional and current practice, providing advice, tools and a range of resources. So initially, within NIWA, there was an informal collective of scientists who identified themselves as Māori scientists, and they were brought together to form the group Te Kawaha. And so Te Kawaha staff involve Māori research scientists who work alongside Māori development staff. They expressly recognise the role of tangata whenua in mana whenua, so authority over land and territory, mana moana, authority over sea and lakes, and kaitiakitanga, guardianship. The creation of a group of knowledgeable researchers and scientists focused specifically on provision of advice for iwi and hapu, enhances management of the natural resources within iwi and hapu's rohi. And so when I looked at these, I chose these two CRIs specifically because Manaaki Whenua takes a organisation-wide approach, so it encourages all of the scientists to consider how they can engage with Mātauranga and to build relationships with tangata whenua. And they're supported by some key players within the organisation, whereas Te Kawaha took the approach of having a key group that did that work. And so I was considering the benefits and limitations of each. And in terms of Environment Canterbury, the recommendation would be that it would be an organisation-wide approach, so staff would be encouraged across the board to engage, but that could be supported and fostered by key players within the organisation. And last slide. So I was thinking about what I would like individual people to take away from this talk today. A lot of my recommendations are sort of bigger level, what can ECAN, or what could ECAN do? Whereas here's some things that you can do. So all valid change depends on individuals just getting the ball rolling within their own realm, within their own work. So these are some 5 practical steps that you can take away today to begin exploring meaningful ways of engagement and collaboration. So the first is initiation. Get out there, go to a noha marae, gain some cultural experience. Then you can start to talk with your colleagues, have discussions with your team leaders and your workmates about what are some possible opportunities for engaging in the work that you do. And you'll be surprised about, once you start brainstorming, how easy it is to find opportunities in the work that you do. Then consultation. Have a chat with our lovely Tuia team, and they can let you know if that's an area of possibility and how to go about it, who to talk to, and they'll give you a lot of support. And get out there, engage, go and meet with the rūnanga, build that relationship, start having a chat about what you want to do, listen to what they want, and start talking about how do we go about this, and then do it. So interface, this is the pragmatic implementation. So just start doing it. You'll find as you go, things might change, and both sides will learn a few lessons, I imagine. But I challenge you to think about how you can initiate change within your own sphere of influence, so the work that you do. We all know the phrase, just do something. That's what I challenge you. Go out, do it. That's all it takes to initiate the interface. So if I was to steal Obama's campaign slogan, yes we can.
Fantastic, thank you, Catherine. We've got lots of time. That was great. No, that's right. We've got any questions to kick things off? Zach?
Thank you, Catherine. That was really interesting. Where do you see this whole topic moving to in the future?
So I've drafted this report, Mātauranga Māori, and a pragmatic implementation proposal. And so just trying to get that externally reviewed at the moment. And then we'll look at getting that, Ken Taylor will take that to Directorate. And it's my understanding that after that it will be presented to Commissioners. And so I would love to see ECAN starting to think about how practical ways that we can start engaging with science. And really my encouragement is just to get out there, start having those conversations, make it happen.
Have you looked at what other regional councils are doing?
That wasn't included within the scope of the work that I did. And I would like to think we're pretty cutting edge in doing this. I know there are regional councils that are doing a lot of work in the Māori engagement space. But I think in terms of cementing some practices around Mātauranga Māori and science interface, yeah, if we get out there, then hopefully we can lead the way with that.
Tim?
You gave the definition from, I think it was Burks or somebody on
Yep.
what Indigenous knowledge was, which not necessarily Mātauranga Māori. And it talked about, I think, I wrote it down, knowledge, values and belief, all in one thing. Do you think that Western science is a false separation? I mean, I just wonder sometimes whether we as scientists kind of put knowledge as if it doesn't influence our values and our beliefs. And is that a valid thing to say, do you think? And should that be something we should be discussing a bit amongst ourselves, not necessarily within the Mātauranga Māori context, but actually the way our knowledge influences our beliefs and values?
Absolutely. I think so often, it's talked about Western science as reductionist. It's about boiling it down, and that's what scientists are trained to do. And I know when I was doing a lot of reading in this space, there's many articles out there that say, no, Indigenous knowledge and Western science can't work, too different, holistic in nature, reductionist. But that's not an argument not to do it. It's just something that we need to recognise, and yeah, be great to consider how Western science, if it is divorced, but I agree, it does shape a lot of our beliefs and our knowledge.
Thank you, Catherine. My question, I guess, is taking it a bit, carrying on from where Tim's left off. And when we go out and talk with our communities in the limit setting space, when we present our technical information, it's often talked about that scientists should be values neutral in terms of talking about the science they're communicating. And I know personally one thing for me when I'm out with the runanga, I'm a Māori scientist and I really relate to the values and the things they're interested in. And I find it really difficult to try and separate the values and the science. How do you feel about I guess that angle that we're taking, this kind of divorcing of those things? Shouldn't happen?
Yeah. Big life questions here. I mean, my view would be you are shaped by your own experiences and your culture. And so I would say absolutely seize that. That's part of what's brought you to where you are and the decisions you've made. And so I don't think it can be divorced, no, and I don't think it necessarily should be. I think you should be aware of the context that that's come from, but it doesn't need to be divorced.
bit further. Just as much as there are debates around the supposed neutrality or objectivity of science, there's also a huge academic literature on the epistemology of science itself and showing how it is actually shaped by a range of values and assumptions and paradigms in itself. So the concept of scientific knowledge being somehow neutral is actually quite a myth. There's a whole bunch of really interesting work about how that kind of expectation of what science is and does and ought to be, how it comes up against all sorts of real world examples, not just with Indigenous communities and their resources of knowledge, but also with farming communities, the work of Brian Wynne in the north of England with farmers after the Chernobyl disaster and those sorts of things. There's a whole lot of really interesting work there in terms of how science can more effectively interact with and communicate with the real world. So if people are interested in that kind of stuff, they can get in touch with me. I've got a bunch of that stuff.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I was just thinking
Yes,
further along the discussion too, when you start to think about what's being said and then you look at an organisation such as ours, like Canterbury, and we set policy, how do we work towards pulling through those values in the policy context, because we use the Western or conventional science in terms of setting limits. How do we move towards incorporating Mātauranga in terms of setting limits and have that process of recognising values where they fall in terms of cultural embedding, be they the Pakeha, Western or the Mātauranga Māori or Blue. That would be an interesting journey.
It would, yes, yeah, one I'd love to be part of. So I think it's, as you say, from the Western science, you've got those values and those. It's not about using Mātauranga to prove that. You've already got that there. So I'm not saying throw it out the window and use this instead or contradict that with this other knowledge. But it's just adding to the picture. The more we know about where we should be heading and how to get there.
Yeah, I was involved some years ago in the central government with an initiative with state environment reporting where we did have a Māori working group representing many iwi kapu working alongside and it was at a time when the sort of whole ecosystems type thinking was coming to the fore and I watched a lot of Western scientists eyes light up in discussions about Mātauranga, thinking about ecosystems and how there was a mirror image in terms of values. And have you seen that sort of thing coming through in any of the literature? So the whole sort of, your interface or integrated space in terms of how we think about our environments, our ecosystems, and then the values we hold. So we're not just looking at land or water separately, we're looking at land and water. We're looking at land and water and biodiversity. So whether the scope in terms of the development of Western science into a worldview is sort of, I guess, evolving at all and what the benefits of that in terms of your literature
Yeah.
research.
And I think Indigenous knowledge reminds us that those things aren't divorced. It's all interconnected and it should be managed as such.
I was wondering if you see any opportunities for our scientists, whatever their own cultural backgrounds, to get alongside scientists who have both the upper in married and as well as that Western science training. I know that there are people locally who have both. We've got that within our own organisation. There are opportunities there to explore.
Absolutely, I would love to see that happen. Walk a mile in each other's shoes. I mean, we've all got the stuff we can learn from others. And so this is not my background. I'm first generation New Zealander. My parents are from the UK. But coming to university, very interested in Māori culture, took an introductory paper, and now this is the space I would love to head into. And so I think I would love to see opportunities for our scientists and our staff to engage, whether that's through appointments, joint secondments, your transdisciplinary project teams. I think there's many opportunities that ECAN can explore for that.
Mary, do you want to? Oh, yes, hand up before. Yes. No?
I was just going to make a comment that one of the things that's really come home to me as I've explored some of this is the connectedness of us to our environment. So when you think about Māori arriving 800 years ago or whatever, and coming to a completely new environment, they came from the tropics down into the subtropics, completely unfamiliar plant life, much of which is poisonous. How do they get to, some of which has to be treated and some quite complex ways of dealing with things to be able to eat it. And the things that they learned within the few hundred years that they've been here, with no written language. And that for me is crucial, that the oral tradition through there, and the way the stories that have been told, and, getting right back to Rangi and Papa, and right down through the stories that they needed to find a way of passing on the information in a way that could easily be remembered, so that the amount of information that's actually in those stories. But what really strikes me is the family connection of us to the rivers and the mountains and the earth and the sky and the oceans. It's for the Māori, one of the things that really strikes me is it's a filial responsibility to look after our family, the environment. And there's a phenomenal amount of knowledge that's hidden in those stories that you can't just crack open with science. And that's where it really does become about opening your mind to something completely different and just seeing where it takes you. And that belief thing and the spiritual and all that, it can be quite uncomfortable, but there's just such a wealth of experience in there, and it's actually very interesting and very satisfying in the morning to work in there. A bit scary at first as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to offer. I mean, why wouldn't we be wanting to engage? But I'm not suggesting that we go out and in one quick, easy step, we will have solved it and we'll be doing it. But it's about just going out and making a start, and every little step will have huge benefits.
So, as you were putting together this report, you talked to a number of people from Canterbury and a number of people I mentioned from Naitahu. What sort of reception did you see toward these ideas? I mean, are people ready to just go out there and do it? Are there any sort of big hurdles standing in the way?
So I spoke to people internally, ECAN staff, and the reception I got was incredibly positive. People are very excited about this space, very keen to move into it. A little bit of hesitation in terms of it's the unknown, don't know quite how to go about it, don't want to offend by doing something wrong, but definitely keen to work in that space. And from talking with representatives from Papatipu Rūnanga about some of the recommendations and what I would like to see happen and the direction I'd like to see ECAN go, a lot of support. And I was told, this is the right time. This is really great.
So nothing in particular as far as hurdles or things that hold people back?
I think there's always going to be hurdles, but they shouldn't hold us back from doing it. As we start to work through it, yeah, we'll come across problems, but the outcomes, the results will be well worth it, and just the journey will be very exciting.
So the recommendations in the report that you get up on the screen, as that goes through a process with our executive secretary and commissioners, there's recommendations in there for some of the how, is that right?
Absolutely.
So we'll see that come
Ladies and gentlemen, Naito is actually in the house. We've got cousin Tassie Gillies, and next is from Rapaki. So when we said just do it, if you want someone from Rapaki, there he is. He's just completed his masters down in Otago University with resetting power, although he is recovering from a Zoe in Canada. Next we've got Derek from Mātauranga. Derek in 2008 from Otago University helped do our ecology report of the harbour and Coconut, and it was absolutely excellent to know both of you sitting there quietly with your heads down. Sorry, I've got to tell everyone. And also next to David, thank you very much. Adrian, it's awesome to have you here as well, being part of this conversation and being here. So I need to ECAN staff, Naito's here. So just reiterating how great is it at this presentation. We can have Naito here, people on the ground. So please, after this presentation, talk to these people and make something happen. Is a bit of a catchphrase for today. I suppose I'm going to put away my Environment Canterbury hat and put on my Runanga hat as the Secretary of Te Runanga Koko Rarata and putting on my lens, holy hell, here's Environment Canterbury want to do a project with me using Mātauranga Māori, Western science and our science, and is the scientist ready to hear about looking at land measuring soil quality, and I'll be talking about the whakapapa pani, the who birthed Kumara. And from Kumara, her genealogy, her children with a mako, with a shark. And to me, I can't wait to spread that corridor, but how do we know the time to pick Kumara is a time when the mako comes up the harbour to sunbathe and rest? How do we, look at that science? And I know we're talking about reduction. I love a scientist to look at that story of reductive history and prove that relationship. To me, that would be really, really powerful. But then also looking at my hapu, like Koko Rata, our Mātauranga Māori might be different from Taumutu, where David's from, but you can understand why that is from the environment and from their pūrākau, their koiro, and especially in settling in. So it goes two ways, is Environment Canterbury ready to knock on the door and create a project as the marae ready. And I really, we're in the 21st century. I really believe we are there. The people are here, but I think patience is a real key. I know with scientists, I know as scientists, you've got these goals to achieve. You've got a start date and a finish date. Then to be bombarded with this type of history, it's a huge journey, as Marion presented, but the jewels and the gems are there. And to know, I love to talk about that database that's accessible for everyone to go back to. I think that's going to be really significant. So definitely support the kaupapa. Definitely, as a member of Runanga, thinking, what the gems, the jewels that can come out of this relationship, but also small steps is a bit of a mantra I've been learning. We've got to take our time, really plan it well, and I suppose with that relationship, nothing better than a cup of tea and a biscuit and planning things together. And a marae, it has to be known, as you can, we've got to draw a line sometimes when a project has to be finished or what some of the outcomes are. But don't be disappointed if you don't achieve your outcome. There's actually a lot of learning in not getting to where you think you're going to get. I think that's where the real learning is. I think sometimes being unsuccessful is success. And if you think you've got a destination, you can't quite make it, just don't be afraid to be unsuccessful. Not so much in a relationship, but if you're trying to achieve a certain goal. So that's just my final comments.
Thank you, Manai.
Say anything as well.
Kia ora tātou, tautoko ngā mihi kua mihia, kia kōrua, kia koutou ko tai nei, tēnā koutou, huri no kia koe Catherine, te wahine o te rā, tēnei ngā mihi kia koe mō tō kōrero kia mātou, ai pai ana ki tō mahi mō tātou, ngā kaimahi o te kaunihira o tai, kaunihira o Waitaha, tēnā koe, tēnā tātou katoa. I just really wanted to respond in a way a bit to Carl's question, and it's about the threats, I guess, and we've got, I guess, the things that we do as Environment Canterbury. One of the biggest challenges to Mātauranga Māori, for Māori, is preserving a way of life. That's actually the greatest threat to the preservation of Mātauranga. When when our old people lament that places that they've gone to gather kai from for generations are no longer in a state to do that, that's the beginning of the wedge that drives a separation of people and place and resources. And that's the wedge that that starts to separate the loss of language and the break in what has been that intergenerational passing on of knowledge. So, you know, often, you know, our Rūnanga people get really emotive about their resources and the protection of those things. You know, so much of that comes down to it's not just about going and catching an eel, it's about a whole way of life, it's a whole knowledge system that is being placed at risk. And so, you know, it's I guess it's thinking about as Environment Canterbury, what small things or what things can we do to be less of a challenge or a blockage to that, and so that the other challenges can actually be resolved, and that comes down to, you know, our kids from the marae that grow up ultimately relying on a supermarket to provide their kai and their sustenance, as opposed to what has again been that long-term intergenerational connection. And that's why we celebrate people like, you know, my Uncle Don Brown, who lives on the side of Waipora every week, goes and catches his net full of flounders. Just through that exercise of doing that, he preserves and continues a memory bank of knowledge. But, you know, he's recognising the success of his catch, which of the pātiki are more prevalent in the lake at that particular time. When he guts them, what are the invertebrates that are in the belly? What are the predominant invertebrates at the time? What does that tell him about the water quality? Because if there's a lot more midges, then that gives him a signal as to chironomids. That tells him about, you know, what the state of the play is. So yeah, I guess for me, it's I guess it links to some of the bigger outcomes about, you know, what we do as Environment Canterbury, and when we talk about mahinga kai and supporting places that Rūnanga and iwi members can go and gather kai from, that in itself is part of this biggest cycle and circle of Mātauranga, preserving knowledge and a way of life, which perpetuates itself over time and adapts with new technologies, new ways of doing things, and that sort of thing. So yeah, the challenge is how do we, I guess it's a bit like citizen science. The question, I don't know if, have we come up with a way in which, you know, the trout fisherman contributes what he knows and has seen happen to his trout fishing hole for the last 30 years. You know, that's the same type of knowledge system, and it's just how do you appreciate and utilise that knowledge, and Mātauranga falls into that same kite, because you're relying on people to interact with a space or a resource, and then feed back what it is they've learned from it. Not just got to feed, but learn some other things about what's changed.
Any other questions? Time for one more. Yes.
Okay, I was interested in your comment that you said that you see that youth could be at the interface as agents
think it's important to engage with our young people across the board, but also in the runanga space. They're the future. And so if we as an organisation can engage with them and teach them a little bit about the work we do and how we operate, and they've got that wealth of knowledge from the runanga side, and they're going to be the future employees of organisations like Environment Canterbury, that they can work in that space. They've got their Mātauranga and the wealth of that, and they know how to interact in our organisation and in our spaces. And they're really those go-to agents that can go between the two.
Thank you. Be happy to know that we've started on that journey with Waterwise at Homewood.
That was great.
Okay. Oh, look, thank you very much, Catherine. That was fantastic. Thank you all for coming. Now, I'll just remind you that we are genuinely interested in your feedback. So you'll have seen a feedback form, or if you didn't see it, you're probably sitting on it. Can you please fill that out? Thank you, Ivo, for organising these. As you know, Ivo pulls these together. Our director, Ken, is really interested to know what people think of them. Can we improve them? What can we do better? What shouldn't we do? So, yeah, please fill those out and hand them back to...
I'll hand them over.
Over there. Yeah, there's a box at the back. Okay, look, thank you, Catherine, once again. Thank you for all your time. I hope you've found it valuable. I certainly have. And, yeah, see you next time.